evening, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, like Suzanne said just now, I traditionally only public speak when I do a sales pitch, not when I'm talking about something that's not really relevant to my work. So yeah, you can say I'm a bit anxious to be up here, but it's nice being here. I remember about almost a month back, Daniel reached out to me and said, do you want to speak at Incitement on the topic of what if? I actually took about a week to get back to him. Before I finally did, I decided, hey, what the heck, I might as well just try it out. So yeah, here I am. It's not like what Zikri said, it's nothing technology about my presentation, right? It's nothing to do with Google. Google just happens to be my day job, right? So yeah, on the topic of what if, when you hear the question being asked to you, what's the first thing that generally comes to mind? I think the two presenters before me already emphasized that, right? Basically, when you talk about what if, generally we look back in retrospect at an event, and it's generally a past event that we are not too comfortable with, we didn't like it there. So we generally look back into the past to see whether we can change it or not. To think, what if we could have done it differently, right? But what I'm here to tell you today is that don't basically stop thinking about the what if, stop considering what if that could have happened or what if something could have happened, because essentially anything in our past basically molds us to who we are today, good or bad, right? So just as Thomas Edison basically went through many iterations to finally develop many of his inventions, likewise, our past, be it good or bad, basically formed who we are today. Any one of those missing pieces will basically mean that we will be a different person from who we are in the present day, right? So I'm going to share my own story, right? My own major what if, and this was basically back in my uni days. So before I go into that, if given a choice, right, of these two universities, I'm not saying anyone is good or bad, right? Right? This was the choice that I had. If given a choice, which would most of you choose? Singapore. Yeah. I actually had a choice. In fact, I was supposed to go to Sydney, then I opted for Singapore. I don't know what made me decide that. But yeah, essentially I went to Singapore, right? And for most part of my uni years, I regretted that decision. Yeah, so it's nothing to do with the uni itself. So yeah, in case anyone from NUS is watching on YouTube. Yeah, so yeah, it's nothing to do with the uni itself. It's more just the kind of education that I got, right? So generally, I find that education in this part of the world is generally one where you mug and you just regurgitate everything out during exams, right? So when I saw actually my friends who basically went to like the States and other parts of the world, I actually desired the kind of holistic education that they got, right? I even had a friend who basically had half a credit for doing pencil etching, and likewise another half a credit for playing badminton, right? I mean, how cool is that? I mean, you don't actually have to do like, in Malaysia it will be Malaysian studies or something like that. You don't actually have to do that. But to basically do something where you're really interested in it, and all these things does not necessarily play a part in your academic, but it molds you to be who you are. But most of all, what I really desired was that the culture. I found that Singaporeans generally are like Malaysians, right? So I didn't see a difference in culture. I would have really liked to be able to have seen what it would have been like studying in Sydney, living among Australians, basically knowing or seeing that new culture, not the culture that I was basically brought up in for 18 years, right? So, but yeah, regrets aside, I basically decided, hey, what the heck? I'm stuck here in Singapore, so I might as well make the best of it. And for those of you that don't know, if you go to Singapore to study, generally you're bonded there. So I was actually stuck in Singapore for 7 years, right? So since I was going to be stuck there, I might as well make the most of it. So the only thing that I could influence was basically my career, right? So what I did was basically whenever I went from career to career, whenever I made the move, I made a conscious decision that if the career wasn't working out, right, I would change trajectory. So every time that I switched, whenever I moved, so I basically moved from Singapore, Malaysia, and I basically moved a couple of times in Malaysia to where I am today, right? I basically didn't move for the sake of just remuneration or whatever not. There was basically a path that I wanted to take. So for example, when I graduated and started my first work, I won't list down the companies, right? Though you can find it on LinkedIn. Right? So, but basically, when I graduated from studies, I wanted to be a consultant. So that was what I desired. That was what I managed to get into for my first job. After 3 years working as a consultant in Singapore, I knew one thing's for sure. I didn't want to be a consultant. Right? So that's what I basically did. I basically plotted my trajectory. Every time when I made a move, I decided that I will basically look forward instead of just keep looking back at the past. I mean, whatever that I'm in now, right? It may not be the best, but I'll make the most of it, right? So the other thing that generally we don't think about when we think about all these what ifs is that, like what I said at the start, whether it's good or bad, it molds us to be who we are today. So unless you start seeing that being sold in Harvey Norman or something, right, it's unlikely you're going to change the past. And even if you can change the past, right, are you willing to accept the repercussions from it? Are you willing to accept that you will definitely be a different person today because you have basically changed something bad in the past, right? I, for one, definitely will not want, even if that's available, right? Mainly because of two people in my life. So this is getting a bit touchy-feely, right? Yeah, but mainly it's because I met my wife in Singapore, right? And of course, not having met her there, I would not have my son. Right? So let me just wrap up here. I know it's a short, but hopefully it's interesting. Let's go back to the initial picture that I showed. So instead of dwelling on the past, instead of dwelling on the many what-ifs in our lives, what if this could have changed? What if I had really gone to Sydney? Right? Instead of dwelling on those, what I encourage you instead of moving back to the future is basically look into the future. Because whatever that's in your past is permanent. As I said, unless the flux capacitor is invented and being sold widely today, even then you need 1.21 gigawatts to power it. Yeah, so unless that's the case, right, you're unlikely to be able to change it. So why not look into the future, right? Because basically, the future, how your future turns out, is basically how you influence your future. Okay, thank you.